Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Gavin Courtney.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
Looks like it's going to be another warm one.
That's for sure. Dry season is in effect, and we can feel it from very early.
Oh, yeah.
If you haven't. Of course, we know there's a lot going on in the country. We are preparing for a state of emergency that comes into effect at the end of Wednesday. And there's a lot to talk about when it comes to that. So we hope to give you the latest information during the course of the show. Keep in mind that the Prime Minister has a press conference coming up at 10 a.m. today. I know there are still a lot of questions that people have from who's going to be essential service to whether or not people get paid during this time, how you'll be able to move around. And so there are a lot of answers that people will be seeking in that Q&A with the Prime Minister this morning. All right, but we got to get moving into our show here, and we're going to go ahead and just read our prepared forecast for today. Our general situation is that weather conditions will continue seasonably warm and dry.
And for the next 24 hours, we can look forward to some more sunny skies with a few cloudy spells, and we're going to see some partly cloudy skies tonight.
Well, we got Mr. Gentle on the line. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
All right, Mike, we were just about to start without you. But tell us about our weather for today.
Conditions will continue seasonably warm and dry for the next few days.
All right, and so that 24-hour forecast?
We expect sunny with a few cloudy spells today and partly cloudy tonight. Showers, if any, will be isolated.
All right, and those high temperatures for today, what are we expecting?
Okay, we're expecting about 87 along the coast, 93 inland, and 81 in the hills. For tonight, 80 along the coast, 72 inland, and 68 for the mountain Pine Ridge.
Okay.
So we're expecting the temperatures for inland areas to increase further tomorrow.
Okay, and what about the winds?
Winds will be from the east and southeast at 10 to 20 knots, and this will produce moderate sea conditions.
Okay, and the extended forecast?
Okay, we're not seeing any major change in weather conditions except for slightly more warmer temperatures for the Orange Walk and the Kaya district in the next coming days.
Okay. Now, Michael, we know that we've gotten a few complaints about people seeing smoke in their area, and the Met Service usually provides a fire update as well. Can you tell us what people should do today?
Yeah, the risk for forest fires continue high, especially with the warm and dry conditions. We're seeing much more fires over the northern part of the country and along the south coast. So we need to be careful with, it's not the season we should be burning trash or burning
Fields.
anything. But
Okay.
these conditions will continue. Fire risk will be continue high for the next few days.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing that information, and we do hope people listen to it and adhere to it as well.
Yeah, sure.
You have a great day today.
Same to you.
All right. There we go.
Yep.
And I did want to get in that fire risk update, because I know that I've seen people have been complaining about fire or smokes in their area. Do remember that at this time of year, the Met Service does provide information to let you know when it's a good time, if you have to burn your field, or I know in some rural areas they're allowed to burn garbage, that you can check in with them and see if it's the ideal condition.
Yeah, definitely. As Marlene said earlier, we are well into the dry season, and as you heard from the update, we're expecting a lot warmer and drier conditions. So please be on the lookout, be vigilant, and of course be safe in all of those, whatever you're practices are.
That's right. We're going to keep things moving into our eye-opener for this morning, a little bit of motivation to get us started. And today's eye-opener is taken from dailyom.com, and it goes like this. Thoughts of revenge create an energy of imbalance and is best dealt with by releasing your anger. There can be times when we get so angry with someone that we find ourselves imagining ways to seek revenge for the hurt they've caused us. Remember, however, that the thoughts you've just had are energetic creations. Before we allow ourselves to invest our energy into negative thought or action, we can remind ourselves that everything has a purpose. We can then consider that perhaps the actions of the other person or people may have had nothing to do with us. If we don't take their actions personally, it may be easier to release them. Remembering that every interaction is an opportunity to make a better choice, we can take a deep breath before responding, allowing us just enough time to connect to center and make the choice to respond from our higher self. In every moment, we have a chance to make a choice to bring light into the world. When we bless others with the gift of our positive energy instead of letting circumstances affect us negatively, we bring a little peace to the world every day.
It's a nice one. I like the beginning because when they make the distinction between revenge and releasing anger, because for a lot of people would think that getting revenge is releasing their anger, but definitely as as the message went on, I think one of the things that struck me in that same way is that a lot of the times we're not really taught constructive ways to release anger.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that it can be an opportunity, as I said, because it's a type of energy and it's something very dynamic and it's something that can be channeled into something more positive or constructive.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times we're not really given the tools to do that, but what can help especially is, of course, self-reflection, and of course, as is a theme on a lot of our eye-openers, really thinking about it and assessing a situation, thinking about what you're reacting to, what is it that other people are doing that you're upset about. It could, if somebody does something else, it might not have anything to do with you, as it says. So you don't even have to be angry in the first place.
That's my primary takeaway, and it's something that I think you've seen it a lot. Perhaps when you read different articles about anger and revenge and stuff like that, you just gotta learn to not take things personally. Sometimes people's actions and reactions towards you have absolutely nothing to do with you.
Most of the time they don't.
No, I would say people think that you're going around thinking of how to somehow make their lives miserable, and it's just the furthest from the truth. You got to sometimes check yourself and realize, one, that not everybody's actions is processed or in any way geared directly towards you. And the sooner you realize that, you can let go a lot of that anger. And I also think that sometimes we just kind of this is really an interesting time for this eye-opener, because we're about to have everyone shelter at home, and people are going to be together in close confines, and there's a lot of fear and anxiety that people are experiencing right now, and emotions can be really high. So it's a great time to consider what you're going to allow to make you angry, how you're going to respond to that anger, and of course, keep communication lines open as best as possible, because you don't want an eruption in your home in the midst of a 30-day shut-in. So I think that those are all things that you have to consider. But for me, the key thing is don't take it personally. Yep. You have no idea what people are going through ever. And it could be worse than you think, or probably just less important. But the point is that you just don't know. So don't take it personally. For sure.
And my other favorite thing about this eye-opener is the line that says that each interaction is an opportunity to make a better choice, or to just become better in and of itself. And I think that, especially when we're dealing with anger, what you should do is, when you are in a situation where you have maybe some negative feelings or something, is use your experience. Look back on, things that you may have experienced in the past or things that you've grown from, and try to use it in this new situation where you can not just react. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the times, especially in using the example that you were giving, if you're if you're with your family or if you're in close quarters with somebody, I mean, even some really minor things might start to annoy you.
Yeah.
So use that as an opportunity to really grow and manage yourself, manage your anger, manage your level of stress, because, somebody, putting the knife in the wrong place or something, something
Very
like that.
revealing there, Kevin.
I
Did
know.
somebody place your knife in the wrong place?
Oh no, I don't even, I'm just trying to think of something, but you know what I mean? Like those minor things which can build up or small annoyances.
Yeah.
You don't have
Or you misinterpret things people say all
for
the
sure.
time.
And you realize that it doesn't, and of course it doesn't have to do with you. So you don't have to react to it, and you don't have to let it get to you. So, every chance, use that opportunity to make yourself better and to make a better choice.
I have a feeling this will be a great eye-opener in a few weeks' time, but we got to keep things moving. And we have a little twist on our on our morning tea for this morning. So there have been a lot of changes. We've been talking about what's the new normal and what's temporary for now. Today we're doing a Thankful Tuesday, right? And this is a part of our morning tea. We definitely encourage you to share with us. We're looking forward to hearing some of these responses. And so for today's Thankful Tuesday appeal, what will you be thankful for after the COVID-19 pandemic? What will you be most thankful for?
Well,
My one is easy.
Yes, okay.
Yeah,
You should go first.
Well, I think I've said it every day so far. I don't know if I say it on air or off air.
Yeah.
I really miss hugging people. I'm a hugger.
Yep.
And this social distance is really challenging when you meet good friends that you haven't seen in a long time. Sometimes they come on the show or I meet them somewhere else. You got to remember to keep your distance. And so there's no physical interaction and hugs. Even with family members, you tell a 3 or 5 year old, wait, they're coming to run to you with a warm hug. And you say, wait, I gotta go, wash up, change my clothes, and then you can come hug me. That's the tough part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am most thankful for hugs when this is all over.
You know what? I think it's even it's pretty basic for me, but I think that I'll be thankful for, just having a routine. Because, for the past few weeks, we've been living with so much uncertainty, so much changes from, day to day, sometimes even hour to hour. If it's, people have been saying, and I've been seeing all these things like online, and people have commenting about how March has been like the longest month ever, just because we've just been dealing with so much every day, and it's not just Belize, it's the entire world, and we know so many things are fundamentally changing. And I think that I will definitely be thankful for just like a more sense of calm and normalcy, and so that I can go to sleep in the night and kind of know more or less what to expect the next day. And I haven't felt like that for a very long time. So that's probably what I'm gonna really be thankful for.
All right, so that's our thoughts for this morning. Of course, our morning tea is just a part of conversation starters for you. I would say with your coworkers, for those of you who still go to work, but if you're at home, have that conversation with people in the home and find out what they're gonna be most thankful for once things start to normalize again, right? So with that, we got to get moving into our show. And as we said, we are preparing for a state of emergency that will be in effect for 30 days, starting the end of Wednesday. And that will be for the entire country. And so we're going to have the Director of Health Services from the Ministry of Health, Dr. Marvin Manzanero. He's going to be here to talk about the latest as to what's taking place, the expectations, and what we can expect to see with the state of emergency in effect, and the implications it'll have in terms of reducing the spread of the virus.
Yeah. And for our second conversation, as you know, under the state of emergency, Belizeans will be required for the most part to stay home, apart from those who are working in essential services. And of course, with that, that means that a lot of you are going to be working from home, if you aren't already. And so we are going to be speaking with a digital marketing strategist for our
Yeah.
second conversation to speak about some guidelines for turning your home into the ideal online work environment.
All right. And for the third part of our show, we're going to be joined by representatives of Belize Estate and Company Limited. They're doing a special initiative in terms of reducing the rates of rental cars. And that's because they know that some people are having mobility issues. The transportation isn't as accessible as it used to be. So we're going to get all the details about that in that part of the show. And then we close off with, well, we know that parents are at home with the kids. We know homeschooling has been different and challenging for some people, and so we got you covered. Our friends at J&W are working along with us, and they're going to give you some special time for you to sit and have that coffee. You just put the kids in front of the television, and we're going to entertain them for a little bit. So we got kids time to close off our show for today, courtesy of J&W Super Shopping Mart. So that's our lineup for today. We're going to go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, it'll be for COVID-19 update.
With over one
We are back and we are jumping into our COVID-19 update as part of our first conversation. And joining us this morning is the Director of Health Services, Dr. Marvin Manzanero. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Now, I believe it was the last time you were here, you had said, or 2 months ago I should say, that it was really a matter of when but not if COVID-19 has reached us. We now have our third confirmed case, and perhaps you can start talking. You can get us started. Sorry, on what the confirmation of the third case now means for us.
Well, actually, the last time I was here, I know Marlene also said, we will have you here for sure before Easter.
Yeah.
And I don't
Thank
know.
you for fulfilling that
Yeah,
promise.
right?
Well, I mean, it's a different circumstance now, but
course.
you are right. Yesterday or today, I think is exactly 2 months ago, we had said it's just going to be a matter of when it gets here. We now have a third confirmed case. It's an imported case, so we don't really have what we have been trying to guard ourselves with as a health system and as a country is community transmission, which means we have not found ongoing cases happening in the community. That we haven't detected that. The third case is imported. This first case was imported. The second case was linked to an imported case. Fortunately, those 3 patients that are documented as positive have minor signs and symptoms. We are concerned with the older patient based on the literature that you are going to be able to see, and she's doing well. The 2 females doing fairly well.
The mother of the
mother
index patient.
seems to be the less symptomatic of the 3 actually.
Oh.
And so that's important in that regard, because you always will be concerned with morbidity, I mean the amount of people that are ill and how ill they become, and eventually mortality is a concern. Which is why I think when we say it's also being able to mine the cases.
Yeah.
So now it's active searching for any other case. Given the fact that we don't have that many people coming in, there's still Belizeans coming in. I mean, I think on average up to 10 Belizeans over the last week have been, or even more in some days.
From the northern border?
From the northern border. Yesterday I think we had a person coming from the western border. These are Belizeans coming back, and then you realize.
And they fly through Guatemala and Mexico?
Or they are going by road. I mean, we know even of Belizeans trapped in Honduras, in El Salvador. And then you realize that this is also a practice, something that we had not really looked at, is the amount of people that are outside, the amount of Belizeans that are traveling or were caught somewhere else, and they are coming back home, either for work or medical reasons. If people are coming back.
So the protocol starting Sunday, I believe, or Saturday, is that these people coming in will be placed in mandatory isolation.
Yeah, and even that, in the last 5-6 days we have had to come up with more and more measures, because it's difficult for us to be able to control human behavior, and we had not wanted to go and be so drastic with some of the measures that we are now taking or suggesting, because we only suggest and advise, and these are executed by other agencies, not only the Ministry of Health. So initially we had a quarantine measure set up. 24 hours later we realized we needed to amend it, and Sunday we amended it further to talk about mandatory quarantine measures. I believe 9 people are currently now on the mandatory quarantine.
What does that mean? They're at an institution that is set up, or a hotel that's been rented for them?
A hotel that people will have to pay, because I think when we said this 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had said in a press release, you are likely to come in and pay for your own, for foreigners and for Belizeans as well. But again, it's not working. We have been trying to negotiate with people. Okay, go and self-isolate. It's not working. So you have to really scale it up.
You were working on good faith that they would do what was the responsible thing to do.
Yeah, but as I said, it's changing people's behavior. The routine that people would have, I mean, it's not happening. So that's why you have to go to the measures that we have taken. I mean, even the measures that we have taken across the country, even though you don't have community transmission, we had not envisioned that we would have had to take it so early for our context in an epidemic. But it has to be, because I mean, it's not. People are just not abiding. Not only the people coming outside, it's even us. When we had the school closure a week ago, the element of social distancing, people are still not following that. So the state of emergency now that gets enacted is to try to enforce things, because people are simply just not understanding.
Let me just wrap up that point with people, Belizeans. It's only Belizeans that are allowed to return home.
Yes.
Belizean diplomats as well. And they will now be put into an isolation where they have to pay.
Yeah.
A flip side of this is that they will think twice whether they want to return home from an area that has active transmission of the virus. Is that a part of why you've moved to these measures?
Not really. I mean, we cannot discourage Belizeans from coming back. And again, there might be exceptions to the rule. I mean, yesterday we had somebody who had open heart surgery outside of Belize 8 days ago and is coming back. We are aware of cancer patients undertaking treatment somewhere else that are now starting to come back. So those are exceptions to the rule. I mean, these are people, but it's whoever went on vacation knowing, then you have to make some measures in that regard.
And for the persons who are still coming back, what level of, let's say, screening or testing does the ministry do for this transit? Are they being, examined when they do return?
It depends where you're coming from as well, because some areas have, like even in Mexico, some states don't have ongoing or any transmission happening, but now Mexico, is expanding in terms of their cases. So a risk assessment is done.
Yeah.
If you would be symptomatic, you would be screened. If you're coming from an area that's having a high level of cases, if you have been in contact with anybody that's COVID-19 positive, then your risk is not the same. So you are not routinely going to be screened at the point of entry. But in a quarantine, what you try to do is keep somebody in an area. It doesn't mean that your risk is the same as everybody else who's in that quarantine station, if you will, but because we are unable to track everybody, and not everybody is really abiding by what we are saying, then just put everybody there.
So how many people are in mandatory isolation at this point?
Up until when I checked this morning, 9 at the northern border.
At the northern border.
And we will have to find other areas where people can be put up until we have determined what's going to happen in that regard.
So let's go back to the recent positive case, which is a part of why, and the Prime Minister said it in his address yesterday, why this particular case is of concern is because it is in Belize City. And given the density of the population and the movement that we have been seeing even after some of the social distancing measures were communicated, it is important for us to move to this phase. What we saw with the index patient was that she first reported that she self-isolated, and in fact it turned out that it was not the case. How certain are we that patient number 3 has in fact self-isolated as he is communicating at this time?
Well, when you do what's called a mapping exercise, you would go and interview the person. That's the first thing. Ministry of Health staff was in communication with him the last 4 or 5 days prior to him being diagnosed. So a mapping exercise will look at how you got here. So even the plain manifest, where you are seated, who is seated alongside you, and follow those persons. Now, he is only, when he arrived, he didn't have any sign or symptom. Airport officials, health officials that were there did, because he was coming from an area of concern.
Yes.
He was told, and he himself said, listen, I have a family, I'm aware of where I'm coming from. I am going into the self-isolation situation simply because of the condition that can potentially happen as a result of this. Again, you're going to have to rely on what people are able to say. But a mapping exercise will also entail interviewing the people that are close to you to verify and cross-check that what you are saying always adds up. We are only aware of him in that interview process that he came out the day he was swabbed. He drove himself to the area where he was swabbed and drove back to.
So he's saying he had no interaction with anyone? People picked him up from the airport?
Well, that's people, whoever reviewed his passport, that is followed in that regard. But in terms of after that, then, because what you try to do is minimize contact. And it may not be that one single interaction may
will
be
result
the
in a
reason.
transmission.
It's usually, it's always going to be a question of risk. The more exposed you are, the more likely it is that you're going to be can potentially become infected. So that has been done. What we did, for example, with the index cases, we swabbed some of the frontline people right? The immigration officer, and those results have turned out to be negative. Remember, even the close contacts of the first two cases, they were swabbed and they are negative, but they are still in self-isolation until we have done another swab and determined that they are negative.
Wait, so the immigration officer or the people who came in contact with the patients who are positive, they're put in self-isolation following the mapping exercise?
Depends on how much risk we are going to be able to determine for you. As I said, in the first instance of the people who were swabbed with the first cases, measures are taken in terms of identifying, assessing them, and people are interviewed, right? I mean, you are interviewed how much interaction you had, and swabbed based on that. Some of these people are asked to be in self-isolation out of an abundance of caution in that regard, but it's an individual situation. But it also doesn't mean that the neighbors, because people are always wanting to know the name, the exact neighborhood. That's not the way it's done. I mean, it's you look for level. I mean, I'm sneezing here, and that doesn't mean my neighbor is exposed. It's the people who are here. I mean, the 3 to 6 feet that we are asking from people. That's what we're looking for.
Now, the contact tracing that you would do with the patients who are positive. So we had 2 imported cases and 1 close contact case. That close contact case would have been moving around, not knowing that she was positive for a while. From those mapping exercises, how many people have been tested?
From San Pedro, initially we had tested 8 from that index case.
Only 8?
From San Pedro, the close contacts.
And is that the total amount of persons that she came in contact with?
No, the initial mapping had been 34, and then I think it went on to 50. But you also map the risk of those persons. I mean, it doesn't mean that all, because if that is the case, then everybody who's on the plane, but it's not the same risk. Even in epidemiology, when you have a full plane and you have somebody that's positive, you do a little map in terms of a square, right? It's the distance around that.
Okay.
Doesn't mean the pilot, for example, needs to go on quarantine, or it's a level of contact. So after that, we went back and tested others. I mean, the immigration officer. I am not. I don't recall the full number of people tested out of that index case, but all those persons are in a listing, and as we expand our testing, people will be swabbed randomly. We're looking at expanding this week in terms of testing healthcare workers that may be ill with the flu, people at the airport, maybe people at the borders who are just frontline, even if they have no sign or symptom, just to do a random sampling exercise. I know people are saying we don't seem to be testing that much, but
well,
when we look
I want to continue that. So the first index patient, the mapping, you were able to identify 34 people who came in contact, tested 8 from the second case.
or may have been in contact.
Yeah, and the second case with the person who was unaware and not in self-isolation?
The second case, you're talking about the mom?
Yeah, the mom.
I mean, the contacts did not expand beyond that. Actually,
Okay.
the contact list was bigger for the index case than for the second case, who was not really going anywhere. I mean, she's somebody in a close environment, if you will.
Okay. So going back to the issue of testing, it does seem when you say 8 tests, and on average, the reports that we've been getting, it's about less than 10 tests that are being conducted on a daily basis. How do you explain to people why the numbers are so low?
Well, one is we don't only test for COVID-19. I think we have concentrated on that. We are trying to do a mapping exercise, and that should be completed either today or tomorrow, for the total amount of tests that we have done for other flu viruses. There's 2 things that are being done behind COVID-19. One is there's the usual influenza A and B that we would have routinely been screening for. In all cases, we had 2 sentinel sites, right? One in Belize City and one in San Ignacio, prior to COVID-19, which means everybody with the flu, you routinely test and find out what's happening. We had launched on a study with university that never really got off the ground. The launch was supposed to have been last week, or the official launch. But what we're doing with that is we're testing for all the viruses, all other viruses, and so that's an opportunity. So those 2 things are happening. So it's not that testing has actually decreased. I mean, we are doing more testing for other things. COVID-19, we had initially, following WHO guidelines, which means if you had the risk, that definition. Over the last week, we have expanded that, so we have taken samples from people who are severely ill.
Yeah.
At Carl Huchner, we have had pediatric patients, random sampling. I think in the last batch that was run on Sunday, we had 2 people that had no people basically that you swabbed, a tour guide from San Pedro, a worker from San Pedro, swab. So it will be updated today, but I believe it's 103 samples now that have been tested for COVID-19.
So in the beginning, I think people kind of understood why we were limited in our testing capacity. We had 100 kits originally from PAHO mid-February, but now we have what, 3,000?
Oh, well, we got 300 last week. On Monday, we got 1,000 on Friday. We ran low on an enzyme because it's not only the kit. I mean, we require other reagents.
Yeah.
I believe that's arriving today.
Okay. And you're estimated to get how many more?
3,000 more.
Okay. So we're going to be about 4,000, over 4,000 testing kits very soon. What we hear from other countries that seem to be coping well with the outbreak is that they've done mass testing. Is that going to be an attempt made here?
2 things with mass testing. I think only 2 countries have really done mass testing. Even in the US, they are not doing mass testing. I mean, they're testing more and running out of that capacity to test.
Germany and
South Korea and Singapore, I think, were the ones who just went and did mass testing. What we are thinking as a team is those tests are going to be able to take us from now until perhaps there's rapid testing available that makes the screening process much more quicker and for everybody, because eventually down the road you're going to have to open your borders. I mean, Belizeans may have to go for whatever reason outside, and maybe you have that opportunity to test upon arrival. When we look at rates, we did some exercises on Saturday to find out how we are comparing with other Caribbean countries, but the bigger countries. And on Saturday, when you did the cutoff, our rate of testing is higher than Japan, and that's per 100,000 population. And people are going to say, oh, but Japan had done 27,000 tests in a population of 127 million. So when you do the rates about 22 point something, we had 27 point something on Saturday. Per 100,000. I mean, we only have 370,000 persons. Guyana on Saturday had done 40 tests, and they are twice our population. They have 8 cases. We had done twice the amount of tests with half of the population, so our rate is 4 times higher. In discussions just now before I came on with CARFA colleagues, not everybody has the ability to test in country. I think we really have to understand that and underscore that. 12 years ago with H1N1, we did not have that. I think this is an opportunity. So the 3 cases detected as much negative issues that people are going to place on the health system, it's appreciating the fact that we have been able to identify 3 cases.
That's a valid point, because I recall many times having to report the kits were sent to CARFA. You have to wait till it arrives in Trinidad, it has to come back, and then we find out, well, we have to wait for the results and we'd find out. But because we're testing here, we're getting results in 1-2 days.
And the fact is that we would not have been able to send to CARFA with flights now practically being non-existent.
Wow.
And the challenge with CARFA colleagues right now is that, for example, traditional routes are not existing. So they have one flight picking up all the samples across the Caribbean islands, going on to CARFA once a week. And CARFA sending out a note that, for example, they are low on the enzymes, we run low. And they are saying at the rate we are going, we perhaps are only going to be offered testing for 2 more weeks. And after that, we don't know what's going to happen. So we're trying to safeguard that from our end. I mean, until we are able to assure, because the kits, 1,000 are here, but the other 3,000 are still not here yet. They had said the middle of April. So it's not that easy, but I think we are in a better place than we were 12 years ago.
So going back to the issue of testing, one of the things we do know, and I always say this with the caveat that there's a lot we don't know as yet about the illness. It's just it's a novel virus. But one of the things we do know is a lot of people may be asymptomatic, which means I can look perfectly healthy here. I've had a lot of exposure to different people. I may be carrying, or I may be having COVID right now. And because of that, we don't necessarily know who's passing on the virus. Is that part of why with testing, you know, there's even with the tests that we have done, there's a possibility that there are many more cases in this country that just haven't been detected?
There's a possibility, yes. But
is it a likelihood?
I have been asked that question. I don't think so. And even if it were, the two things when you talk about an epidemic curve, what you want to avoid is overwhelming your health system.
Yes.
What you want to avoid is a surge of patients that require in-hospital care. We have not seen a surge in the amount of people that are having respiratory illnesses. And we have not seen a surge in the amount of people that are requiring in-hospital care for severe respiratory cases. So if that were true, I don't know if that you would say that that's a blessing in disguise, because then you're having an immunized community that's not requiring hospital care. But we are not seeing that. So when we last week started sampling those people who are severely ill in a hospital setting, is because we were trying to find out if we were missing, if we had community transmission. We are not seeing it yet.
So from the people who have been hospitalized, no one tested positive?
Yeah, they tested positive for other things.
Okay.
I think we even tested somebody who has tuberculosis just to find out if there's not something hiding behind it.
Yeah.
We have not seen it. In the expanded testing, that will give us a better exercise in that regard.
And is that being done countrywide?
Yeah, that's another thing. We have been doing samplings from all over, Corzal, Hopkins, Placencia, Belmopan, Karl Huchner, San Pedro. We have been, it's across the country.
So let's move into the phase that is about to start, the state of emergency. You said earlier that you didn't think that we would get to this point so quickly, but we are in fact going to see a change in movement coming the end of Wednesday. Let's talk about what the aim is here. What are we aiming to do? This is essentially what we hear about in US media, but we want to break down. This is the attempt to flatten the curve that hasn't even started in Belize as yet.
And that's the trick situation. I know as a ministry, I felt to have been hacked, if you will, for not having had a lockdown weeks ago, as people said. But maybe we can draw parallels in terms of what's happening in the region, what's happening with our neighbors.
Okay.
El Salvador went through a lockdown to try to avoid that. And when you look at any model in public health, you will find out that lockdowns, forced quarantines, as they are called, or complete lockdowns, don't necessarily work. And El Salvador is a case in point. I think they're the first country that may have locked down completely or tried to without having had any single case. They have 38 cases, I think, now. That's one. We don't have a curve, right? And so the question is going to be, okay, when do you try to flatten a curve when you don't really have one? And the attempt is not, when you say flatten the curve, is because what you want to do is be able to spread out your cases so that you don't overwhelm your healthcare system.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be having 100 cases, if you can make it spread out throughout the year, which is what, for example, Mexico is trying to do, and they have said it, we are not going to see the end of this curve until November of this year, but let's not have the 100 cases show up during the month of April. Can we spread it out, maybe 10, 10, 10, 10, if you're using raw numbers. For us, I think it's trying to enforce the social distancing element that we don't seem to understand. I said yesterday in a different forum that we are not a disciplined society as others are. And I'm saying this because you can see some of the Nordic countries, they have ongoing community transmission, but they have not really closed down anything. It's been quasi-business as usual, in the sense, okay, but we just need to be cautious. Japan having an ongoing number of cases, resurgence of number of cases, but
So
they're
it's the
really
fact that we have not been effectively practicing social distancing without enforcement, without having measures in place to say that we can't move.
and
That's why we're here.
And that's understanding that will be the new norm. I mean, the social distancing aspect is perhaps what we should have been practicing from way before.
Yeah.
The hand washing, the not touching your face. I mean, last year we had a conjunctivitis outbreak, and how does that happen? It's really with
Yeah.
your hands. Had you
The
not
preventative
had it,
measures are the same as now. You have to wash your hands and not touch your
I mean,
face.
the only thing we're now adding is the social distancing because
Yeah.
of the ability of the virus to perhaps spread through
Yeah.
not having that adequate space. So I think that's what has pushed us to come to this situation. For how long, I don't know, because there's many unknowns. What happens if your curve actually starts to pick up in June, July? Then you go for another 30-day period. Yeah.
Well, in Wuhan, China, their lockdown is just starting to be lifted now. What,
This
eight,
week.
8 weeks later.
Yeah.
But that was just in that province. So we really don't know length of time. But one of the things that I've considered is that the expectations that we may have may be too high for what the shutdown will achieve, or the state of emergency to be accurate. Is it that we will not see any more cases of COVID-19 because everyone will be in their homes?
Well, no, because we're still having the people that we are following. I mean, we're going to be testing people who had the travel history, who may be asymptomatic in self-quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
I said last week also the next 8 to 10 days are going to be critical, in the sense that we still have to go back and look at the cases in San Pedro to see if any of those will be coming out.
But if we have the tests, why don't we just test them?
Well, they have been tested. I mean, but in terms of remember, before you are deemed to be negative, you're going to have to come up with 2 other negative tests in the first, once you're positive, or whoever has gone negative, you have to retest them again to find
as
out
a
if they're
confirmation.
negative. Yeah, and even extending the period from 14 to 21 days because there are so many unknowns. So that's why it's critical. It's still critical the next 8 to 10 days.
So from your estimation, are you expecting us to get more positive cases within the next few weeks?
I believe so. I mean, that's a possibility, and it's more than likely going to be an imported case. And even if you have an imported case, I think you can still have the possibility of having what's called a cluster, which means the imported case infected is a cluster, means a group of people who he was in contact with, he or she. Again, I think it's over the next 8 to 10 days is when because since your borders are kind of locked, people are not necessarily coming in as much as you are, as when the airport was open. And even when the airport was open, the last week before it closed, you really had almost empty flights. It's mostly Belizeans still coming back. So it's being able to safeguard those cases as they are popping up. Again, the people who we are following that are in quarantine are not really symptomatic. And understand that we have been following people for more than 2 months. You recall the China situation, people who came directly from China were followed and nothing developed. People who came from Europe in the first weeks of February followed. Visitors from Europe who were here. We had Italians, we had people from South Korea. We have had all kinds of people.
Yeah. Well, the airports have only been closed for over a week.
1 week.
And we would have to monitor this situation now starting last Monday. That would be the last time we saw people coming in on international flights. But then we also have kind of a changing end date, if I could say, if every day 10 more people are coming in through the borders from areas that could have been affected.
Yeah, but it also changes once you have an identified case. Because, for example, the San Pedro situation, perhaps any potential contact ends this week, middle of next week, that you're on the lookout for. But now you have a 3rd case, so that's day 1 from when he started becoming symptomatic, and then find out what happens in the next 2 weeks.
Now let's look at the people who've been placed in quarantine or self-isolation, and I know there's a distinction that's made. So if I was a contact that was mapped, you know, maybe I went to a bank where someone had been, and I have been informed to quarantine or isolate, which one would that be?
Quarantine.
Quarantine.
Self-isolation would be, or isolation is when you're confirmed as a positive case, or you're a highly suspect case.
Okay. So if I'm quarantined, what type of follow-ups are the Ministry of Health workers doing? Are you, because a phone call, I could be anywhere and say, yeah, I'm home.
Yeah, where possible, because it's not only the 9 people in the north, and that's why I think we went to the drastic measures, because our staff has been overwhelmed. Where possible, people go and check the person at their, wherever they are quarantined, to find out how they are doing in terms of their health status. That's what happens, but again, it's people all over the country. I mean,
but is that, I mean, it's impractical to imagine that your health workers would be able to go and check on all the people that are quarantined from suspected contact with COVID-19 patients.
Yeah, it's not everybody, but we try to do in as much as we can, and we have been doing this for more than 2 months now. But again, you have people who are very disciplined, and people who have taken extraordinary measures to ensure that they're quarantined. I mean, I know people who come from universities in Chetumal who are locked down, even with the person who drove them from Chetumal to their home, and they have all been locked up in one house, and they are not saying, I don't want to infect anybody else. And Chetumal is not a high-risk area necessarily. I mean, they don't have community transmission either.
No, I think in fairness, we've had conversations in the news and on the show with people who've been very responsible with self-isolation, from even driving their own selves home after arriving at the airport. And it shows that some people may be doing the practice, but it's those who don't that are putting us most at risk. I think that one of the things that we talk about very often in the what the shutdown may be able to achieve, and when we talk about flattening the curve, and you keep on saying, or curve may not have started, the difference between the charts that we see very often in the US media and Belize is how low that line needs to be in terms of our capacity of our healthcare system. Our KHMH has 8 adult beds, and I think 2 pediatric beds for their intensive care unit set up for COVID-19. And correct me if that's changed.
We have 4 ventilators at Carl Houston.
Yeah, but the ICU unit that they've set up, the CEO told us, I think 8 adult beds and 2 pediatric beds.
And the other ventilators should have arrived yesterday.
Okay. But that means that our capacity, that line that we're looking at in that very infamous map, is a lot lower than what other countries are able to use as their gauge. From your estimation, what number of critical patients would overwhelm our healthcare system?
Well, that's a difficult situation, because the line is also based on many other factors. How populated you are. I mean, and we are one of the least densely populated countries. I think we're at number 17. That's one. 2 is the amount of healthcare workers you have. And also, in terms of the health system, it's not only people who require ventilation support. It's whoever else is hospitalized. And that would be at the regional hospital. So we may have a total number of people, right? But when you look at modeling, and that's how I know we have lots of modelers now on social media, everybody's coming up with these numbers. We don't have the ability to do that. We went with what the Imperial College of London has done, for example, because that's what they do. I mean, we are not modelers. I don't know where people are coming up with percentages and showing out numbers. But if you don't do anything, right, 90% of your population can be affected, and then you do the math starting
and
down
the 20% that would require hospital care.
So you're talking about 220,000 people that could potentially be infected if you don't do anything. Now, Belize, as you would note, has taken measures way before there was any case. So that's a blanket that we need to be able to appreciate. The state of emergency puts a further blanket down that road. Doesn't mean that you're not going, but what you're trying to do is from any curve perhaps happening, but understanding that the virus will be there and it can still surge until you have a vaccine. So you might not have it this year, but if by March of next year we have not done a vaccine, I mean the virus is still going to be there. So then this is going to be the new norm. We're always going to be on the lookout for COVID-19. So I think what you want to do is avoid not only the ventilation patients, it's
Yes.
avoid patients that require
Hospital.
hospital
Hospitalized.
care.
Because it's extensive and intensive hospital care
Yes.
from the stories we've seen internationally, and not just elderly or high-risk patients are hospitalized.
And then you also have to make measures. I mean, I know in one of the first discussions I had with the Prime Minister, sometimes, but it has happened. I mean, it's coming to the light because of COVID-19. But if you have a ventilator and you have an 80-year-old person and you have a 40-year-old person, I mean, as a clinician, you're going to have to make a decision. But the decision based on ethics, I think, will tell you where you're going to go, which is
Do
what
we
has
have
happened.
protocols like that in place?
It's a question, it's an ethical decision made by the health team, I mean, based on established criteria. I mean, it doesn't have to be criteria for Belize, but criteria for the healthcare system wherever you go, which is what has happened also in Italy. I mean, the affected portion in Italy is a population that's much older than
Yes.
so it's the northern part of Italy. When you look at the people who have died in Mexico, in Panama, is also people who are obese, hypertensive, diabetics. I'm not saying younger people don't die. I mean, you saw the case in the US of a young child dying, but it's the risk is also tied to that. So it's trying to ensure that people who don't require hospital care, not just ventilation support, and they are not all coming at the same time into the system.
So my original question was really looking at an estimated number. I'm sure the Ministry of Health and that task force has at least put together an estimate of what would overwhelm our healthcare system.
Well, if you start at Karl Huchner, we would have at max right now with the ventilators coming in 12. Of course, then if you take over the other
That's 12 severe cases.
that require ventilation.
Yes.
I'm talking about ventilation only. We are not ventilating anywhere else. Where would the overflow be? We have been in discussions with a private institution who has said if you loan us the other ventilators, we may have the ability to do 8 more. But again, it's also trying to make sure that if you have 20, that your 20 don't come in over the next 2-3 weeks, right? That you, I mean, if you're going to have 20, if you're going to have 50 then throughout the year, make sure that you're able to
that you're
space
managing
it out.
less
right?
than
Because
10 at a time.
Eventually, what you also want to avoid is not turn a Karl Huchner hospital or any hospital into a COVID-19 hospital where basically the only thing you're doing is COVID-19 and every other healthcare need in the city, for example, will have to be channeled somewhere else.
But isn't that some of the practices being done in other parts of the world where there's one designated healthcare institution to just handle anything COVID-19 related?
Well, people who have the
Respiratory.
ability to do that, respiratory, I mean, Mexico City has a respiratory hospital that's been vacated because they are expecting a potential surge in that regard. So.
Okay. But we haven't designated a respiratory clinic because right now we're in the flu season. Allergy season has flared up, so any sneeze and cough makes people uncomfortable. And they're going to clinics with pregnant women and with hypertensive patients.
The Cleopatra White has been assigned as a flu clinic.
Okay.
So to channel that and be the eventual triage.
So any person with flu symptoms, let's be clear, should go to Cleopatra White.
Should call first.
Should call.
We have been telling people just don't show up because if
Okay.
you're a high risk person, we would rather go swab you. Right? You can be showing up at a facility and exposing others.
yourself more.
Yeah, and so every other facility has assigned a flu area, right? Western Regional, for example, has it outside of the. So if they will triage you first, and I think private hospitals have started doing that. Anybody who has the flu gets triaged somewhere else, and then that determination is made whether you can come in or whether you're going to be swabbed there or what's going to be done with you. So that has happened across the country.
So the first step is people should call before they go if they have flu-like symptoms.
Number. Yes.
0800 MOH care.
Yeah.
If they're in Belize City, they would go to Cleopatra
you will be
White.
assessed based on whatever sign or symptom you're having, your travel history and all of that. In Belize City, we have had people that we have gone to swab at their home, right? Simply because, and in the batch that was run on Sunday, two people, I believe, we had gone to swab them home rather than have them come to the health facility, based on that travel history that they have.
Okay. Looking forward, how do you communicate to Belizeans? We're very worried. I mean, we look at what's happening in New York. We look at the stories that came out of Italy. Unfortunately, there's more coverage on these types of situations more so than countries like Singapore, as you noted, or South Korea and what they did. What would you say about the measures that we have implemented so far, and what we have learned from kind of the worst case scenarios to help us so far?
Well, I think the opportunity has been that it took us a good amount of time before we actually identified a case. So we have had time to prepare, not necessarily as a health system, because you're always going to have problems that you always have to catch up, but as a society, I think we should have been prepared. You mentioned the issue of people being scared, but I don't know how much of that scared or being afraid we have internalized, because we see what's happening in other places, but we are still doing the same thing. I mean, our routine hasn't necessarily changed.
Yeah.
So we see something, we may become afraid, but we don't do anything to ensure that
We don't
are
take
not.
action.
So it's being able to internalize the message. And I think we still have that tendency to always blame somebody else, because I think people are still trying to say it's the government's fault, it's the Ministry of Health's fault that you have 3 cases. But I don't know that you can even blame a patient for being positive. So we have to try to take the stigma out of that.
Yes.
So whatever we are seeing there, I think it should be internalized as a personal message to ensure that we are making the necessary changes to ensure it doesn't happen to us. As we are moving into a state of emergency, I think it's also, if you don't need to be out there, then you really have no business out there. I mean, I know it's a cultural issue, but the Bolido situation, people on Sunday, I mean,
Yeah, we
do
saw
I
the photograph
really,
with the lines in San Pedro.
do we really have a need? I mean, what's the need in us lining up to do that?
Yeah.
So those kinds of messages we need to start to internalize, make the personal changes, because we are in this for a long haul. I mean, this is not going to happen and change overnight. So it's not even going to change after the 30-day initial stage. I mean, come April 30th, I don't know what's going to happen. It could very well be longer.
Well, let's unpack that, because I hear you saying it, and I think people, it's not something that we want to think of when you say this is the new normal. But this pandemic would only end in 2 circumstances: with the development of a vaccine or proper treatment. Is that the case?
Yeah, and none of those are right now, right?
So what does that mean?
Then that we need to make sure we don't become infected. We need to take the necessary precautions to ensure that we are not a person who is COVID-19 positive. Because if a vaccine is going to be here 18 months from now, and again, use analogies, we are all talking about COVID-19. 2 years from now, if there's a vaccine, the vast amount of us are still not going to get the vaccine. And the example we can use is H1N1, the swine flu, when we didn't have the capacity. There's a vaccine for it, and the vast amount of us never get the flu shot every year.
Yeah.
So I think that's one. And since it's a virus, you cannot envision a potential treatment right now. Even the 4 suggested treatments that are there, those are not WHO approved. They're telling
being
you if you're going to
tested.
go about, do it at your own risk. Country makes the determination at the ethical element of that. So what do you do? Well, then you take the necessary precautions to ensure that you don't become infected.
Yeah. So this idea that we may hold on to, saying that 30 days from now we'll all be fine and go back to life as we knew it before, that's a false security that we may be holding on to?
Yeah, and without frightening anybody, I mean, we have to take the necessary precautions. I mean, there will be a new norm. It is. I mean, when people ask me, when will I be able to go across the border for whatever reason, I don't know, because What happens if we lock down 30 days, but these, let's say Chetumal, which is closer perhaps to most than, and it's bigger in terms of Melchor, for example. I'm using those two communities because of their border crossing. What happens if they start to have their curve in May, like what the US is having, right? So how long is it going to take for their curve to go down? Like if you ask anybody right now who wants to go to the US, nobody is perhaps thinking of going to the US. And that curve is not going to start to come down till maybe July, August. So you may not be thinking of going there for the next 3 or 4 months. It may be the same thing across the border. Guatemala just extended their curfew for 14 more days, and that's because Petén doesn't have ongoing transmission. But what happens if their transmission starts in July, August, and their curves start to go up? So even if nothing happens here, we don't live in a bubble, right? It's fluid. It's volatile. It's changing. So we need to start making the necessary provisions to ensure that whatever we are doing, social distancing, hand washing, not touching your face, if you're ill, you stay home, those things are going to be there forever. I don't think that that's going to change.
Remind me, from the last epidemic with H1N1, how long did it take for a vaccine to be developed?
I believe it's about 2 years. I can't recall when the vaccine was available, but in our flu shot, it's been here for years now, and people are still not using it.
No, I just mean that from the detection of a new virus to when the vaccine was developed, it took about 2 years before we had access to it here in Belize.
Yeah. And also, even healthcare workers, we have the vaccine there, and the vast amount of healthcare workers don't get the vaccine. So I know we are concerned about PPEs, and that's a struggle with.
I want to ask you that question, because I think that is part of the scariest part of looking on when you hear the horror stories of people working in healthcare institutions and not having what they need. You said yesterday in your Ask the Expert segment that there are more than sufficient.
For now. You have to prepare for a worst case scenario.
So let's qualify that. When a healthcare worker goes to the clinic right now, or to the hospital, reassure them, because as much as they're doing what they have decided to do with their life, which is help to save lives, they also don't need to jeopardize theirs.
Yeah, and I said for now because we are still preparing for a worst case scenario.
Okay.
Right, which means we are still trying to get the amount of PPEs estimated it would take landed here.
Yeah.
Right, so those have been paid and are processed, and I say for now.
What's the estimated number?
I think it's 180,000. Okay. And we are close to getting that number landed here. But for me, until it's landed here, even though it's paid for, even with the testing kits, we have paid for 5,000. We only have 1,000. Once it's landed here, it's a different situation. The numbers I mentioned yesterday, 4,500 is what has arrived in the last couple of days. Another set is supposed to land this week, and by the next 3rd week of April, we should have gotten everything that is needed for a worst case scenario in 9 months for all healthcare workers.
Dr. Manzanero, from your estimation, and I know you've been monitoring from the start of the year, how would you say we're doing today?
We're doing good. I think it has been a test of the health system. I was asking a survey earlier because people are following what's being done in the Caribbean countries. We share experiences. It's testing the health system. It's a learning experience for us. You have to go back and review every single day, at the beginning of the day, what literature you have available, and at the end of the day, what you're able to do as a country in terms of decision making. So it's been many sleepless nights, because I can tell you have lots of nightmares just going back to, okay, when is it going to change? What is it that you need to change, and what is it that you need to do different, or what have you done wrong or right in that regard? But I think it's also a challenge for the community to understand what role they have to play. And I think it's the opportunity for also to underscore the importance of our health, because suddenly all the light is on the health situation. Understanding that now it's a public health situation that can cripple the economy of not only Belize, everywhere. So I think it's an opportunity to be able to look at us internally and find out what we are doing health-wise, and a better appreciation, I think, of our health and our health system amidst the weaknesses that we will always have everywhere you go. I think it's also being able to highlight the good amount of work that has happened, the trust in the healthcare system, understanding the role of all the foot soldiers that have been at this for 10, 11 weeks that are exhausted. And I'm not talking about the people at Carlucia. It's all these public health inspectors, the nurses,
Community health workers,
the drivers, the lab people working through weekends.
They're on 24-hour call now,
I mean,
right?
they have Saturdays, Sundays when people are lining up to buy their bolido. You have people doing the extraction process at the lab. These are the frontline workers. So what we're trying to do is ensure that we don't have people get into the hospital, or detecting it early to make measures so that we don't have an overwhelmed health system. So I think it's that appreciation and understanding that if we're going to have a successful response or continue to have any good response, it is going to require an all-of-community approach.
So, from what you're saying, the state of emergency for the next 30 days is a step. But if we all don't start to take social distancing serious, personal hygiene serious, staying away when we're ill, protecting high-risk people, then we may just be looking at a later development of a higher curve.
The containment is really dependent on the community. It's not just on the health system. There's only so much we're going to be able to do. I can say this over and over and over again, but I can't be responsible as a health system for washing everybody's hands, for ensuring that people are not socializing the way we used to socialize. So it's really an individual, it starts with an individual response.
So we got to stay home and stay separated.
Wash your hands, don't touch your face. I notice none of you touch your face today, so that's a plus.
I have lots of
it.
and this is, but I think this is a part of it. We are human, and we are used to our way of living for a long time, but it's breaking all those practices now. From the hugging, which I was saying earlier is tough, to even the interactions that we're used to with other people. You know, before you go, I think one of the things that needs to be communicated is just that this is going to be for an extended period of time. You keep on saying till next year. That's your estimation. That's the new normal time frame that we're using.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we will definitely have a long haul ahead of us. Thank you very much for coming in, Dr. Manzanero. I know you have lots to get to, but we do appreciate you coming in and giving us this update.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to go ahead and take a break. And since our new normal now includes working online, that's going to be the conversation that will happen after this COVID-19 update. Stay tuned. And we're back, and we are moving into our second conversation for today. As Dr. Manzanero just reminded us, there is a temporary new normal that we all have to get comfortable with, and a part of that means working remotely or working from home, aka working online. And here to tell us how to get this done, what do we need to know, making that transition and adjustment, we have digital marketing strategist Minor LaRue joining us via Skype. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey.
All right. So I think you pressed your mute button. You want to check maybe you pressed something there. We lost audio for a second.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
we
got you
heard
now.
you. There you go.
All right. Good morning, guys.
Minor, of course, this is a big transition for many, but for someone like you, you've been doing it for years.
Definitely. I think that it's going to be a challenge for a lot of people. You know, working from home is for many the dream job. So can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right.
So you were saying working from home is?
Now, working from home is a big transition. It's also a big challenge. You know, I think there's a couple of things that will ensure success when you're working from home. And it's not easy, you know, and when you think about it, that's pretty much the dream job, you know, working from home. But when you really start getting into it, it's not one of those things that you want, especially if you're a workaholic like myself.
All right, so let's start off from scratch. So a lot of people are venturing into having to work from home for the first time. This includes executing your duties without supervision. It also means sometimes doing virtual meetings or completing things online. Where do we
Definitely.
start?
No, I think the basics of working from home are actually you have to ensure that you create your own space. You know, if you don't have your own space, you know, to make sure that you're not mixing home and office. You know, you have to create an environment you feel like you're at work. And you know, one, it means communicating with your family. Two, it means you have to create an agenda. And three, I think one of the most important things is you have to realize that you have to be you have to ensure that you have flexible working hours.
Okay. So start off with organizing yourself. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And I know during this time when kids are being homeschooled and the wife is home and you know everybody's home, creating that space is going to be a challenge. I know with some of my colleagues in Central America, you know, they've mentioned it in, you know, we have weekly meetings. They actually mention, you know, that they know that their productivity is not at maximum because of.
Okay. Okay. We were talking before, and you said many times the first place to start is with the employer, because they really have to have the buy-in to the system first and understand it.
Definitely. I've actually talked to a couple of big businesses, and I know one bank is moving to telecommuting, and I know one of their employees has actually been doing that for a little bit over a year. So they're measuring their productivity and making sure that they meet deadlines. I think it's both for both ends. Both the employee has to learn how to work from home, but also the employer will need to know how to measure, and there has to be a level of trust, of course.
Okay. So that's one of the starts, and you've been trying to help people get accustomed to the idea. So when we set out our agenda and we start doing our work and you know delivering on our objectives for the day, a part of what is actually taking place are these online meetings. And I am sure we've seen the most hilarious videos and memes about online meetings and things that people get right and the lots of things they get wrong. So what is the etiquette for an online meeting?
No, definitely. I think one of the things that you have to ensure is that one, you have the proper hardware. So make sure you have a good camera, make sure you have good light, right? I actually have a studio light here so you guys can see me better. You have to make sure that you have the right headphones, right? And good headphones is gonna ensure that you're more focused, even and zoom out the noise that's around in the home. And not only that, but I think you also have to remember that a lot of people are new to this. So make sure that you test. We did a test yesterday to ensure that this would go good. And those are just some of the basic things you actually need. Making sure you have good etiquette. Make sure for every agenda that you set for online meeting, you're not wasting people's time. Make sure you set a very strict agenda and you stick to it, because you haven't seen people for a long time, so you're gonna start chatting, and next thing you know, you've gone an hour when your meeting could have been 30 minutes.
Okay.
And what about the technology itself? Like, what are some of the best platforms that people should use to, conduct business and do meetings online?
Now that's a good question, Gavin. So some of the communication softwares that I would definitely encourage. I know some people are using WhatsApp. There's WhatsApp groups. I mean, I'm having conference calls in Europe with some of my partners. But some of the best ones, I have to say, are the paid options. And again, this is where your employer has to come and ensure that you have the best communication software so that you can ensure that you can communicate to your clients as good as possible. So one of the ones that I do recommend, Microsoft Teams, Skype for Business. Zoom is one that is actually been booming. It's very popular because it has a free option that you could try, and it gives you 40 minutes to be able to meet up to 100 participants. And the one that I use, which is the one I've been using for a year, is actually called Blue Jeans.
Blue jeans?
Blue Jeans.
Okay.
So these softwares, again, if you have the license, the employer can actually record conversations, and you could actually save it on a cloud or save it on a server. So if somebody missed a meeting, they could always go back and view it on their time. So there's a lot of things that help employers measure productivity, so that you know that people are actually doing their work home. Blue Jeans. So one of the things that I do encourage employers is actually to ensure that one, set clear KPI, uh, and you let your employees know what they will be measured on moving forward, because they're not physically, being at work is no longer a KPI. Getting to work at 8 o'clock will no longer be the norm, but getting the work done. And one of the things that I've noticed since moving to my home office is that as opposed to being in an office, you actually have, you're more focused because there's less distractions, right?
Yeah.
If you create your own space. So there's no gossiping, there's no walking to get a coffee every minute, there's no chit-chatting, there's no distraction from other colleagues, but they're just emails, and you actually getting the grind done. So one of the things that I've noticed, 8-hour day is actually even more productive. Since I started working from home, that removing me from a home office, that was more perhaps cluttered,
Yeah.
and there's so many other distractions, and you're probably attending meetings that could just be an email.
So, I think sometimes the transition itself is hard to imagine. And one of the first obstacles people, or I think excuses people might use is, well, my type of business isn't set up for online. And in some cases it's true. I mean, if it's food, then clearly you need to have a physical transaction. But many businesses can in fact do a lot of their work online. Would you agree?
Definitely. No, and I think I've been seeing it. I think one of the first industries that in the US to be digitized, this was something I commented on my personal Facebook on March 22nd, was that a lot of the digital transformation that we've seen release has now speed up in a way. A lot of companies now have to quickly transform to the new norm as we know it, because this is not going anywhere for a while. And one of the industries in the U.S., like going back to what I started mentioning, was the mental health industry in the U.S. have actually gone into telehealth.
Yeah.
And we actually see some of that in Belize. One of the businesses I see doing a lot of that is Meta Belize. And it's hard to imagine, people are doing it once you have the proper software and proper protocol.
Yeah.
Again, having the correct APIs to be able to still conduct your work is just in a new form.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and then from the employer's perspective, one of the other benefits that is not usually considered is that having less people in your office also cuts down your expense as an employer as well, because then you're not, burning as much electricity, you're not using as much office resources if people are, working remotely as well.
And that's also something that needs to be considered with the employer as part of the wellness plan, if you may, because you need to be paid perhaps a stipend for your internet if you need faster
Yeah.
internet, if you're consuming more bandwidth. I know Digi has upped everybody's internet by 66%, they say, and that was something I was talking to one of their marketing reps, I think 2 weeks ago. I said, I've already had fast internet, or you're going to avoid me. That I've actually seen a decrease in my bandwidth.
Yeah.
If everybody knows the same playing
Well,
field.
I mean, with everybody at home and online, that's always my concern. I've found the internet connections to be a lot more glitchy because of the excessive use. Is there
Exactly.
any way that you can ensure effectivity in whatever online interactions that you're doing, especially understanding the amount of usage that'll take place across the country?
No, definitely. I think not just the usage, but also the streaming.
Yeah.
Everybody has gone from just being home to starting to stream, from the saxophone guy to the 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 innate reporter who wants to report on what's going on to just about anything funny. There's so much videos being produced that
Yeah.
actually last week Friday, YouTube actually said that they're going to decrease the quality of their videos because of the high demand that they were doing. And I was telling this to the person from BTL. I said, at some point you're going to have to cap certain restrictions in terms of how much streaming is going to be allowed, because it's going to be affecting most of us who are home trying to be productive.
Yeah. I don't think you made a lot of people happy with saying that, Minor. But it is, when we talk to health officials, and clearly we're seeing that this is more of a long-term shift or a longer-term shift than we actually understand. This is a good time, this next 30 days ahead, for people to do their test run. So for businesses today who may not be allowed to open and they're thinking, how can I keep things running? How will I access files on my computer, or just keep my team together? What do they need to start doing now?
Well, that's part of digitizing their businesses, and one of the major concerns employers have is their security, making
Yes.
sure that you are issuing a laptop to that person so that they're not using their personal computer, making sure that they have the right security systems. Like, I'll give you an example. I use Duo Connect system, so when I log on to any of the software for my business, I get a text message that I need to put in, and if I'm idle for more than 30 minutes, I get logged out. So security and copyright and proprietary information is very, very key for employer. And also, if you have all your files online, I work with colleagues in all of Central America, and we save anything on my work issued laptop for the same reason, because if any time this was bad, I could just get a new one. All my files are secure on Drive,
Okay.
Dropbox, on online cloud. So I think a lot of that has to be considered before you tell your employers, hey, and work on these confidential clients that So security would be the major concern for a lot of employers, and ensuring that they have the right guidelines and have the right softwares to safeguard their clients and their employees. I've heard people left their laptop in the car and stolen, but because of security features, your client and the information is still, the integrity of it is very important.
So, you said quite a bit there. So there's a lot in terms of getting the right software, the right hardware, and digitizing kind of your process as well. It seems that for the people who are just starting in this way of conducting work, it's a lot of online interactions. I want to go back to what we're seeing with you. So your background is blurred. And that's always the two things I've noticed with online meetings. One, people don't realize that, you know, the background matters. It's very distracting sometimes. Like, why do you have your phone, or what's in that picture to the back there?
Well, to the back here's actually a window. I
Yeah.
just put a painting, and in the afternoons I like to use this because I get a lot of light coming in through there, and so it makes it just makes the background very bleaky. So I actually put a painting that I just had laying around, and you could actually blur your background. You could actually change. You know, we were on Zoom. You could actually put a picture as a background.
Okay.
So that you're a lot of times your home office doesn't have the best background possible. Right? I've been doing
Or
this for
disclose your
over a year.
location. Okay.
So I've had meetings in my car. Sometimes I go to a coffee shop before this, so I would be working from pretty much anywhere. So having that flexibility of moving around is very important. So this actually gives you that privacy, if you may.
Yeah.
So people don't know you're in a vehicle having a conversation, because then maybe on the other end your client might be like, "Why are you in your car?" Not knowing or disclose your location.
All right.
And
So that's a good tip for the trade, right?
Right? Yeah, what about background noise? Because that's another concern that can be affecting them, especially if you're living in a full house. There may be kids, there may be TV,
Or
things.
dogs.
Dogs, exactly.
All right, so that's a good point, Gavin. So one of the things that I started out by saying is make sure you have an agenda.
Yeah.
So what you could do is you need to know, both for your sanity and your family's sanity, you need to let them know that you're gonna be working from 8 to 5, and kids, it's kind of hard to measure that with kids. I mean, I've had my kids walk up to me. And I have to tell them, no, I'll type this on the side, telling them how to be home. And it's going to be hard for them in the beginning. Someone told me, man, just get an office. It's not going to cost you that much. The signal you're sending your kid is that there's your dad, but he's unavailable, right? And I said, you might be right, but at some point, if I go to work, I'm also unavailable. So my kids need to also adapt as much as I'm adapting to having me home, but not jumping on my lap and punching up on the keyboard. So,
Or a good lock on the door might help too, right?
yes. I know some of my colleagues actually turn their closets into an office space.
Yeah.
And they try to schedule all their calls either in the afternoon or early morning when their kids are not up as yet, so that you have a little bit more privacy. Another tip for me is you need to make sure that you still plan ahead, right? So you're not taking a lot of phone calls.
All right. So why don't you close us off with some online working or meeting faux pas? Like, what are you seeing people do that they shouldn't do? I'm sure one of them includes still dress appropriately when you're on your video meeting.
Definitely. So make sure that you're dressed appropriate for all your meetings. The tip for teleconferencing is if you have your video off, it means you didn't take a shower, you didn't comb yourself, right? And that's kind of like an insider joke, right? But I think here are 7 tips that you should try to stick to, right? Get an early start, right? If you get an early start, then you get more work. You're able to organize your day. You also need to pretend, right? And by that I mean pretend you're going to work. So make sure you still take a shower, you wake up early, you have your breakfast, and you go to work. Believe it or not, when I started telecommuting, my boss said, if you need to, jump on the car and take a drive around the block and come back in if you have to. The third one would be make sure you have a structured schedule, right? By that I also mean make sure you have breaks in between, because you can't just work for work. It's going to be very difficult. And actually, I could tell you again, I'm a workaholic. And at times I've sat on this chair all day long, so I don't wear a watch. So I'll just be working. The window to the back, my wife will come back in the window and be like, hey, it's 5 o'clock. Are you going to clock work?
Time to leave the office.
Time to leave the office, And then the fourth one would be make sure you communicate for home your family needs to be aware that this is going to be the new norm. Talk to
Okay.
your kids, talk to your husband, who put a schedule, right? Even with my wife now being home and the kids, I make sure I take a little I don't take a break, and what I do is maybe at 11:30 I clock out, so I take a half an hour lunch, and I would spend some time with the kids doing some yoga or doing some activity with them,
Yeah.
you know. So that leads me to the fifth one, which is take clear breaks, right? You can't just work, work, work. You're gonna burn out.
Yeah.
And by that, I don't mean go on social media and look at all the updates on the current situation, right? Try
Yeah.
to find a good show that you like, right? One that I like, Please Make We Go, which is a local travel show, and I binge on it, and it's just fun to watch.
Yeah.
Imagine myself traveling because I love traveling, and make sure you have breaks. The other one is my wife and I take turns to cook at night, so we actually prep the meal for the next day, so that lunchtime comes and you're like, crap, what am I gonna eat? What am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And the last one is make sure that you pick a definite finishing time. I think you need to make sure, and I think both your employer and you need to set those working hours. And what it's called is actually flexible working hours, right? So you could say, hey, I'm going to work from 5 to 11,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe from 3 to 5. It still equates to 8 hours a day,
Yes. Yes.
and that's very key because you also need to give time to your family, especially now that your
They'll
kids
be
are.
at home with you. I do appreciate that last tip because I think the overwhelming feeling of maintaining productivity and still parenting and being a teacher can be a lot. So
Oh,
it's
definitely,
it's a matter
definitely.
of getting the work done more so than the whatever allotted hours you
I agree.
dedicate.
And again, getting the work done means from an employer's perspective, they need to communicate what are your KPIs,
Yeah.
what are you going to be measuring.
Yeah.
So I think that has to be very clear to from the employer to the employee what they need to complete and by when. So setting deadlines for your employees
Yeah.
will also help to keep them productive.
All right. Well, Minor, I'm sure you're going to be bombarded with even more questions than we gave you after this. How do people get in touch, or can you offer any assistance to companies who realize they have a lot more work to do?
Definitely. My number is available to everyone. It's 630-1563. I'm on all social media networks as @minorlar. And I'm not sure if you guys have the last slide, sort of like the thank you slide that we could put on the screen. It's actually a photo of my oldest baby, at the blue lighthouse reef,
Yeah.
and this photo is actually very symbolic to me and what a lot of employees and employers are going through. Everybody's been given a floaty and said, "Hey, go home and work," but a lot of people have been told what they need to be doing, how they're going to be doing. And, again, if anybody needs assistance, I'll be happy
Yeah.
to help them.
Well, we weren't able to get that picture up, but we will post it on our social a bit later. But thank you
Okay,
nonetheless, Minor. We appreciate the conversation.
perfect. Take care, guys.
All
Have a good day.
right.
Stay safe.
Yes, you too. Wash your hands. All right, we're going to take that break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about affordable rental cars after the break, so stay tuned. And we're back. And we got the conversation started for a bit without you, but we'll get you up to date. We're joined at this time by representatives of the Belize Estate and Company.
Yep. So we have with us, joining us for this conversation, we have on our couch, Elita Canto, who is a supervisor from Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and we also have David Vasquez, who is Assistant General Manager from BEC. So good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us, guys, and thanks for allowing us to join you in your space. I know these troubling, uncertain times, you know, we are fortunate to be able to spend some time together and to be here with you. Listening to the DHS this morning, and of course in your follow-up with Mr. LaRue, talking about, you know, everyone's throwing around this term, the new norm, and the new normal. We don't know what this normal will be, but thankfully for you guys and this show, that, you know, this gives Belizeans a semblance of normalcy. And as long as you guys are still on, we can look to this as, you know, as a degree of normalcy, so to speak. So we're grateful for that. So thank you for having us.
We do miss having physical bodies in here as well. So it's great when we still have guests. But it's an interesting time, you know, and I know that I want to start off by talking about, you know, how things have been going for you, especially in the rental business, because we know that it was very active it was a part of the tourists' practice to rent a car as soon as they come in. So let's talk about the immediate effects that you've seen so far.
Well, basically, our tourist business has basically dried up and died. You know, people, obviously the airports are closed down. What little tourists remain in Belize are struggling to try to get out. So whilst they do have opportunities to move, you know, to stay in Belize for some time, they're not moving around. You know, people are staying where they are. So this is uncharted territory for us. This is a new existence, and for us in our business, I mean, we're all about transportation services. Belize Estate Company Limited, we provide transportation services of various types. From our dealership side, we offer vehicles for sale, which is dried up as well. No one's buying anything right now. No one, you know, we're talking about financing economics a little bit, touching that vaguely just now, but again.
So you're seeing, absolutely, I mean, rentals have dried up. People aren't purchasing cars at this time.
Well, luckily for us, the dealership side still remains active. People still need to be mobile.
Of course.
And of course, in these times, mobility is more critical than ever. When I say that is, yes, we're supposed to stay home, and so it doesn't mean doing the things recreationally that we wanted to do in the past or we were used to doing, but there's still critical need for mobility, whether it be for, you know, government services, local and municipal. We're talking about people with excess need for transportation. We found out that the reliance on public transportation obviously we have poor public transportation, and now the guys are taking all the health hazards into effect and, you know, parking their vehicles. So that now the need for mobility is even greater.
Some people don't have as much access, you're right, in being able to move around.
And this is not about persons, just persons, and sorry to interject, but it's also about families. I mean, families need to you know, their grandmother that lives in Hopkins, or the the old aunt that lives in Cayo, or you know, your parents, and you're in Belize City, and your parents who live in Orange Walk. We need to be mobile to be able to check on them, to be connected still, because there's still this need for some degree of connectivity, right? So,
you know, businesses across the globe have been forced to innovate. Like, it's just one of those situations where you got to find a way to keep on going and identify needs that didn't exist before and see how you can offer a service to help. And that's where you are with Enterprise Rentals. You have recognized that public transportation isn't as reliable. People need to have more space even in their cars, so you might can't pack up as much, and that moving around and checking on people you want to do so in a clean and safe way. So you're offering a solution. Tell us about that.
Well, before I hand over the floor to Ms. Elita, I wanted to share a little bit. You know, our plans were always that we exist at the airport. Elita is the leader at the airport, and this primarily is for our tourism business and people who are flying in, whether it be local tourists or Belizeans coming back home or tourists from abroad. But our plan was always to open a home city location, meaning a location that could service other needs, not just tourist based. You know, the occasional insurance replacement or service replacement. You know, your car gets in an accident, you need a replacement. Your car is broken down, you need a replacement. So this whole COVID-19 crisis sort of sped up our decision to open up a home city, and now we operate solely out of Belize City at our dealership.
Okay.
Melita and the team has migrated over, and so they're now joining us there. All our fleet is there as well too, and the idea behind it is to make sure that, you know, Enterprise has been a global leader. They are the #1 rental business in the world. Rental brands of Enterprise, National Alamo together represent the #1 rental business in the world. And us being a franchisee, we are moving in line with this campaign that they have launched called On Call for All. And what it essentially does is saying that, you know, in this crisis, we're all in this together. So we recognize the need for mobility, and we are here to offer that service in a modified way as possible.
Yeah.
So Elita and the team, and Elita, please extrapolate a little bit on this a little bit more, but talking about the really attractive rates we're offering now for people who, you know, need to be, again, families, not just persons, but families, businesses. There are several things required right now, that essential services. We're battling a little bit in talking about what all were essential services this morning, and we feel, you know, in different parts of the globe, dealerships and rental businesses are considered essential services. Why? Because mobility is essential. And so we touch on some of those points. So Elita will tell you exactly what these rates are and what are we offering right now.
What we're offering to the Belizean community is our way of customer service.
Okay.
You know, this is from our rates being as low as $24.99 for the most economical vehicles.
Wow.
To our nice family size, full size SUVs, which is our Ford Explorer. And the prices range from the sizes of vehicles. But the difference is not much. It's maybe $8, 10 Belize dollars. So it's affordable to everyone. And we want to make transportation, since we're lacking transportation right now, comfortable transportation. This is what we're offering to our customers. We're here for you on call. Give us a call. You don't even have to come into the office. You can call us. You know, we have a tablet. We're technologically advanced, I would say, because we could take our tablet here and we could open a contract for you. We could take payments from this tablet. We can also do an inspection via the tablet, so the customer doesn't have to come and have any contact with us.
This is, I mean, look at the prices are very low.
Very affordable.
I'm trying to imagine.
And these are Belize dollars.
And I was going to ask that. We're not talking about doubling up in Belize. This is the Belize rate. Now, what you are aiming to do is offer transportation to people who need to get around right now. One of the things that, you know, we didn't get to discuss this morning, but that was absolutely sad, is that our healthcare workers are actually being shunned from public transportation. Buses don't stop for them. People don't want to give them rides when they try to charter one, because people feel like they're somehow exposed. This is one option that they can choose.
You're right on cue with that, Marlene. And again, too, there's always concerns. On the concern side, I think Lita brought some of this stuff this morning with us to show that in our business practices,
we just stole your Clorox wipes. They're actually not.
We are extra careful. I mean, one thing people don't understand with the rental business is the degree of which we take care of our assets. And outside of COVID-19, we maintain one of the best practices in terms of cleaning and prepping vehicles, because we understand their special needs. Some of our renters and customers have allergies and different things. So we are extra careful in how we clean. And even though we have ramped up our efforts and the cleanliness of these vehicles, we are, you know, literally leaders in terms of sanitizing our vehicles. Our location, I'll tell you, Belize is state by extension, and of course, we are a member of the Boeing group of companies, but there are strict protocols in regards to sanitation of our locations, and we're doing that as well too. So it's really the way we do business. We're practicing all of the 6 feet social distancing rules and everything else, right? This video they're showing right now is how meticulous we go through in terms of cleaning the vehicles with all the right cleaning materials, all the right techniques in terms of cleaning every touch point and every contact point on the vehicle.
Man, talk about the new normal. Normally we're talking about specs of the cars. Now we're talking about how much you clean it.
Yes.
Yeah, and this
That's
is
important.
fairly impressive now,
Yes.
looking at it.
No,
As we are over specs, this one is important. Now, this is key for people to know because people are worried about contamination, especially in a product that would be used by multiple people. So that's I think what you were getting at, even in looking at the contactless service. Explain to us what that means.
The contact?
Yeah. You said that you have tablets, so
Correct.
that, yeah.
Correct. We could pre-check in a customer.
Okay, what does,
On the phone, we could get on the phone and we ask your details of a driver's license. That's really all that you need with us, a valid driver's license.
And now you could WhatsApp that,
Yeah.
and you could take a picture. and
Correct. You
WhatsApp.
could send me a picture so that I could ensure you do have a driver's license. It is valid. You are allowed to drive a vehicle.
yeah.
But we pre-check you in before you come in to the rental. When you do come into the rental, your contract is automatically emailed to you. So it's paperless. We do everything technology-wise to the inspection of the vehicle. When we're handing over the vehicle,
Yes.
the only contact is, we're going to give you the keys. Of course, we are fully prepared. We have our gloves, we have our masks, so that we don't have that interaction with the customers. And during the inspection, we have a program that we call the Record 360. This takes a live picture of the vehicle. So, and again, we email it to you.
Okay.
So the customer is seeing what I'm seeing. It's a video record, so it timestamps, it records my voice. So both of us know how you got the vehicle,
In
how
what
you're going to
condition.
return the vehicle.
Okay. Okay.
We're at the cutting edge of technology, guys, in terms of everything, whether it be the program we use in terms of TST, Record 360 in terms of checking the vehicles, online billing in terms of emailing you your bill. Once you know you return the vehicle with drop boxes. We don't have to necessarily be there for the actual physical
Yeah.
handing over. So we're trying as best
And
as possible to
payments and
operate
transactions,
with-
those can also be done.
with credit cards
With-
and everything else. Once we have your credit card information already swiped, I mean, it's basically you hand in the vehicle, and whether you bring it back full or not, you can be charged for that.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that. If you know there's emergencies that come up and you need to leave the vehicle
Yeah.
outside of working hours, we will set up drop boxes that you could drop it off, and you leave the key, and we take care of the rest. So it's a service understanding this new environment that we're operating in, and of course,
Yeah.
we're taking into account not just public safety, but the safety of our employees as well. too. So-
Yeah.
And as new as it is, have you found that you've actually been receiving sort of inquiries and these types of requests from from new customers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of inquiries. People have been calling in to us about the rates, if it's Belize dollars.
Yeah, if it's real.
Listen, I see $24.99 and I'm thinking,
Yeah. No,
Yes.
but and this is the idea of this is making it not just affordable. I mean, we are talking a lot of businesses right now, guys, are into hibernation. They're talking about shutting down. They're talking about closing off. I mean, whilst we're trying to be thoughtful of our employees and their safety and everything, we are also the type of people and the business that we're in, especially Elite and our team. We're in the people business. We look after our customers, and so we want to be able to offer services that are required right now and urgently sometimes. And so this is our opportunity to contribute. A lot of people are staying at home. They're shutting down their businesses. We don't know what's going to be at the end of this. We don't know if businesses will survive. And we talked about this with Chamber yesterday and saying what will this new norm, barring that term again. But we're looking forward to through this. The commitment is there to our employees, the Boeing Group, and BC by extension. We're keeping all of our employees. We've committed to them. Our president and CEO has put that out there. Elite and their team have won so many awards, and we want to touch that a little bit in terms of customer service. They have put Belize on the map in terms of enterprises. Theme is, their mantra is that, we go that extra mile, we do the distance I can't. I wish I could remember the actual term, and you would, Elite, but
what is the term?
help me
We
out
go
here.
the extra mile.
We
is
go
that
the
it?
extra mile or something
Yeah.
to that effect. But at the end of the day, we are the idea behind this whole new service that we're offering, and we continue to maintain this coming outside of this extraordinary event that we're in, is that we want to be able to be accessible for our customers, right? When we opened up our doors 5 years ago, we quickly realized that we're not in the car rental business, we're in the people business, and as
customer service.
it's about customer service and people treating people with respect and compassion and some of the things that, whether it be a tourist coming in and, they've just stood in line for 3 hours at the immigration and really just want to get to their destination, or it's the guy whose car broke down at Belize Estate and he needs a replacement vehicle. So, and as we do that, we will continue outside, and as this event unfolds, we plan on being there for our people, for those who have been there with us and those who are to come. So that's our plan.
And, I think that one of the things I can clearly foresee, there's some people who, depending on what happens with public transportation, will need to move around, and this gives them a really affordable option, $25 for your lowest level per day. This is not an hourly rate, this is per day.
Yeah, and keep in mind, guys, these are not old cars. These are brand new cars. You see the Kia Rio there, that's a 2020 Kia Rio. 5 people can fit very comfortably.
Yeah. But let me ask, is everyone eligible, and what happens, what if I'm in Orange Walk and I want to rent one of these cars?
Well, again, too, we have to work within the confines of what we're allowed to do, moving around and everything else. We are, if it's going to be a long-term rent, we're projecting that this won't be a one-day rental situation. It's going to be difficult because, again, we have to keep the safety and security of our employees in mind as well. So we're thinking minimal 1-week rentals. In the case of anything longer, and say you're in Dangriga and you want to rent for a month, we'll be there for you. We'll be able to deliver within the confines, of course, of what we can, moving around in security aspect of the armed forces and everybody else. But we plan on being as flexible as possible, and that's what has been the strength of this business, going the extra mile, as Alita said. Alita and her team have won global awards for the past 3 years. And
congrats.
Again, I mentioned earlier, putting Belize on the map. They have been recognized as the #1 and in the top 3 in the past 3 years as the best in customer service. So kudos to Ms.
That's wonderful to hear. And especially in a time like this, Belizeans will be happy to have such wonderful customer service on the other end of the line. Who do we call? Like, where do we get in touch if we're interested, if we want a quotation, if we want to find out more?
Well, currently we are located in the Belize Estate compound. So you could call their numbers, which is 223-0641. We also have a local number for enterprise, this is our 24-hour service number.
Okay.
So we answer all hours of the day, the night. This is 225-2882.
Okay.
You can also visit our website, which is enterprise.com. Right there, you could also book a rental. You could see our prices. You could find us on Facebook. We also have a Facebook page, and we could answer you through Messenger as well.
Okay, nice. And I mean, how big is the fleet that you have that you're offering these prices on?
Well, not to give a definitive number, but right now we have enough vehicles. We have enough vehicles.
So
we're inviting anyone to take it. Well, not all the vehicles, again, as Alita mentioned, there are car classes. And so we don't have all of our fleet at $25. But, again, too, we're more than willing to be flexible, granted the period of time you want to rent. If someone comes in and wants to rent for 2 or 3 months because they need to, we'll be able to have discussions regarding pricing. So whilst there are car classes with definitive pricing, the pricing are all, as you can see from the price list there, it's very attractive for all of the car classes. So, and that ranges from economy cars like the Kia Picanto all the way up to our 15-passenger vans as well. So there's a car class for every need.
And how long will the promotion be going?
Well, we're planning this for the next 90 days, to be honest.
Okay.
And outside of this, we can't see beyond that at this time. I don't think anyone is making any definitive plans beyond that. But, this thing is for providing the need as long as there is a need.
Nice. So. All right. Well, we appreciate you coming in to tell us all about this. And I know that there is a need for people to, the supermarkets were looking to transport people in for their to come to work. The public transportation has become a lot more difficult to maintain. So there's definitely a need, and having affordable rates is going to help a lot.
Yeah.
So best of luck.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having us.
All right. And so once again, if you want more information on these affordable rentals that start as low as $25 a day, you can contact Belize Estate and Company, or you can contact Enterprise. We are actually going to shift gears now. So parents, bring the kids in front of the television, or friends at J&W Shopping Mart have a treat for you. You can sit and enjoy your coffee. The kids won't bother you, because it's time for us to get moving into the premiere of our Kids Time. All right, and so what's going to happen is every day we're going to close off the show with this special time where you can give the kids some TV time. You can take your little break, because you know it's going to happen. And today our video is actually going to be Dr. Panda of China telling us about the coronavirus.
Let's go out to play! Let's go out to play!
Toto, we're going through a special time right now. Everyone should stay at home. Look, you don't see many people outside, right?
Yeah? Why?
It's because people are protecting themselves from the 2019 novel coronavirus.
Novel coronavirus?
Yes, and it all started a long time ago. Once upon a time, there was an evil family of viruses called the coronavirus. All members of this family have crown-like spikes. They are very powerful and sneaky. Coronaviruses can wear all kinds of masks to disguise themselves and harm both animals and humans. Recently, coronaviruses have been very busy mutating. Initially, they only used to infect wild animals, but this no longer satisfied their ambitions. They wanted to expand their family, so they mutated into the novel coronavirus. Unsuspecting people who came into contact with these infected wild animals gave viruses the opportunity to enter human bodies. When the novel coronavirus enters a person's body, it spends 2 to 14 days observing its new environment. This is called the incubation period, during which people may not feel sick at all. However, the body's immune system army recognizes the invaders. When evil germs enter the body, the immune system army will try its best to protect us. So, the virus and the immune system army go to war. The new coronavirus is very powerful, so during combat, the body may have fever, tiredness, coughing, and difficulty breathing. If you notice these symptoms, you should go to the doctor immediately. The doctor and nurses will join your immune system army to fight the novel coronavirus. But the sneakiest thing about the novel coronavirus is that it is much more contagious than the other viruses.
Contagious?
The novel coronavirus mainly infects people through fluid droplets from the respiratory tract. When we talk, sneeze, or cough, we spray out saliva. And the virus takes this opportunity to infect more people. Also, it can spread through close contact with people who carry the virus. So, Toto, do you know which tool we should use to stop the virus from spreading? A hat. B, socks. C, masks. D, plastic bags.
Masks.
That's right! Masks can help protect us from airborne saliva that carry viruses. Wearing a mask not only protects you and others around you, but it also reduces the chance of spreading the virus. Also, we should try to stay at home because we don't know where the sneaky novel coronavirus is hiding. It could be hiding on the playground, a bus seat, or even a door handle. But if we must go outside, we should 1. Wear a mask and gloves. 2. Not touch our eyes, mouth, nose, or the outside of our mask. 3. Wash our hands thoroughly after returning home. Our hands are most likely to come in direct contact with the virus, so we must wash them with soap to keep them clean. 4. Stay away from crowded areas as much as possible.
Inside. Let's stay inside.
Great job, Toto! During this time, we should all eat lots of fruits and veggies and get enough rest to build a strong immune system. If you do get sick, don't worry. Your parents and doctors will help you get rid of the virus. Even though you can't go outside to play, Dr. Panda is with you and believes that you can keep yourself safe at home. Let's fight the virus together.
Yeah!
Search for Dr.
There you go, Dr. Panda. Oh, we're back. I'm sorry. Clearly, we were enjoying that video as well. We can fight it together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we do want to tell everyone this is a new feature that we're adding to the show. We know that you're at home with the kids, and there's a lot of information that they can get, but we're going to pick some information that's really going to help them. Once again, this segment, Kids Time, is sponsored by J&W Shopping Mart. They're giving parents a bit of a break so they can put the kids in front of the TV for some quality entertainment. And also you can take that time to go online and do some shopping on their online shopping website.
No, absolutely. So we want to thank them, and I hope you enjoy Dr. Panda as much as we did.
I know. You got to say it again.
Yeah,
Let's fight the virus
together. And
together.
so you can tune in tomorrow at the same time and same place for this new segment, and make sure that you get your kids in front of the TV so that they can watch.
That's right. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, we'll have our wrap up.
Hi, Michael Theos here from J&W Shopping Mart, inviting you to try out our new online shopping sensation, jnwshopping.com. Our online versions allow you to shop from the convenience of your cell phone. Our online store allows you to shop for all your groceries, frozen products, beauty supplies, pet supplies, kitchen supplies, wines, and so much more. We at J&W Shopping Mart have made shopping easier for you. Visit us at jnwshopping.com.
With over 100 years of service excellence,
And we're back.
Wrapping up another interesting show. I mean, I think I enjoy the new close or the new final segment, I should say.
Yeah.
It's a bit of fun for the kids and for us too.
Yeah, you know what the funny, I mean, I think sometimes even like the kids shows can teach us so much because it's just in a more catchier and creative way. So once again, we will be closing off every day with some kids time brought to you by J&W Shopping Mart. And we're going to make sure that we can cover as much as possible as the weeks go by. We know that the country is preparing to hear from the Prime Minister at today's press conference to get all the details as to what the state of emergency will include, who will be essential service, how much movement will you be able to make, and just what the expectations are of us for citizens across the country. One thing we can tell you is, of course, we're going to keep on bringing to you all the information that we can. We'll be your eyes, your ears, and we'll be posing those questions for you during the course of this time. And you can keep on waking up and starting your morning with us as we keep you informed. That's the most important part. Dr. Manzanero stopping in, you know, I really just think we're grateful to him for taking the time to do so. He's been here quite a few times, but it's been a while, and clearly they've been really busy. There's a lot of information we got there. More importantly, seeing that this is not something that will go away in the next 30 days. And that's something we have to start to collectively process and adapt to. We will, for a while, be facing some of these new expectations in social distancing and hygiene as the pandemic continues to spread.
No, absolutely. So we do want to thank Dr. Manzanero for coming in again and giving us that update. And as Marlene said, we are going through a big period of adjustment. And one of the biggest adjustments that a lot of us have had to make is that we've had to move from the traditional work settings, offices, workspaces, and a lot of us are now working from home. Yeah. And so we definitely also want to thank Minor LaRue for talking to us this morning, giving us some tips on how you can make your work from home work for you and your family, and ensure that you would still be productive throughout these changing times.
Absolutely. So really important conversation there. And to close off, affordable rentals. Belize Estate and Company and Enterprise are offering discounted vehicles to be rented. If you are having trouble with public transportation, if perhaps you share a car and prefer not to because we're looking at contamination and all these things, there are really affordable rates that you can take advantage of. You just have to contact them, and they have done, you know, they even brought all their, they showed us how they clean the cars, what they're doing to prevent any kind of interaction and maintaining social distance, even in the handing over of the vehicle. So you can get in touch with them. Those rates are for the next 90 days, they're saying, so you can definitely take advantage of it.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's all the time we have for today. Let me remind you that we will be carrying live the Prime Minister's press conference at 10 a.m. You can check it out live on Channel 5, and you can also watch it live on our Facebook stream on News 5 Live. We'll get all the details on what is expected during the state of emergency that will start at the end of April 1st. And carry on for 30 days after that. And that's all as a part of our preventative efforts that we're trying to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you have any questions, comments, things you'd like for us to discuss on the show, go ahead and send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. Drop me a line at marlene_@oye@channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook. That's where you can watch the videos of the shows that we have had. You can also see photos and get additional information as well, and that's at Open Your Eyes BC on Facebook.
And you can also find us on Instagram at OIE Belize.
All right, and remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes
and start your morning right.
And we're also closing off with something special. Yesterday, we talked to Dr. Filiberto Pineros, who was in self-isolation, or who is in self-isolation. Day 13, Doc, you're almost there. And he told us that he wrote a song while in isolation for COVID-19. So we're going to be closing with that today, or show This is Dr. Filiberto Pinedos and his original composition of a song on COVID-19 he did while in isolation. Have a great day, everybody.
You've got to change your reckless ways, baby. You've got to change your reckless ways. Yeah, yeah. Before we're coughing cause of you. You've got to change. Yeah, yeah. We've been watching and we know it's true. You've been walking, shopping all over town. Soon you'll be coughing and steaming and asking what's wrong. This can't go on. Lord knows you gotta change. Yeah, yeah. Oh, please stay home. Yeah, yeah. Please wash your hands, keep your distance too.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank.